Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's presentation. I'm Jeremy Poore, Director of Marketing at RISC Networks, and I'll be moderating this webinar entitled Real-World Lessons for Cloud Migration. A special thank you to Anita Pandy, a VP of Marketing at Velostrata, and to her team for helping us put this together. This is proving to be an exciting subject in the IT world, as we're joined today by a global audience of over 400 professionals from enterprise, managed service providers, global service integrators, and more. It's a great turnout, thank you. Today's agenda will cover challenges to adoption, the customer journey, and a few real-world lessons as we examine recent case studies. Before we begin, I have some basic housekeeping. Please type any questions you have for our presenters, and we will attempt to provide answers during the Q&A session towards the end of the webinar. If we don't get to your questions during Q&A, we'll respond by email afterwards. At the end of the webinar, after Q&A, we'll be showing a 6-minute demo of our joint solution. Audio for this part will only be available on your computer audio. So those of you who are calling in on cell phones will not be able to hear this part. Not to worry, this demo will be included in the webinar recording, which you all have access to later today via email. I'd like to introduce today's presenters. Jeremy Littlejohn, CEO and co-founder of RISC Networks. Jeremy is a recognized expert in the fields of networking, cloud, and unified communications. He founded RISC Networks in 2007. And the company has completed more than 12,000 engagements worldwide. Jeremy is the co-author of 6 patents regarding IT operations analytics. From Velostrata, we have Ben Hagai, Director of Global Technical Services and Customer Success. Ben is in the trenches every day working with customers on cloud transformations, and his responsibility spans the entire customer migration lifecycle. Formerly with VMware, Ben has over 10 years experience in major digital transformation projects. So without further ado, let's begin the conversation with Jeremy Littlejohn of RISC Networks.
Great. Thank you, JP. And I want to echo JP's thanks to everyone for attending today's webinar, for Ben for helping us put it on, and the entire Velostrata team. So thank you guys very much. Before we start getting into talking about solutions, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the challenges around cloud migration. And, there's a lot of different levels of challenges that people face. But as you can see here, even from InfoWorld, most of those don't involve the cloud. So most of the challenges that people are running into don't really have anything to do rather with the end environment that they're going to run in, that it's not suitable, that it doesn't do it, that it doesn't provide security, it doesn't provide performance, or those types of things. The challenges come more around two different areas. How do we select and prioritize the proper workloads or applications to move into the cloud? And then how do we execute that? Are we making it as hard as we possibly can on ourselves? Or are we using tools and platforms like RISC and Velostrata to automate that process and make it easier, okay? So we see this every day as we work with customers, and they tell us that they've started cloud, they're all in for cloud. And we ask, well, how's it been going? And they say, well, for the last year and a half, we've been working on trying to do application interviews, and in the meantime, we've migrated a couple of little apps of it. It's like, okay, well, that's not efficient. That's the challenge, right? We can do this at a better scale and with more efficiency, but it requires us to approach it in a particular way. So that's what we're going to talk about today, and that joint approach from RISC and Velostrata. So JP, if you go to the next slide, let's talk a little bit about that at a very high level, and then we'll drill into it. So RISC Networks platform is an IT operations analytics platform. We do service mapping and discovery, application dependency mapping, and then we do analytics of those applications. A lot of those analytics drive decisions around cloud. That could be public or private cloud or hybrid cloud solutions. But that's what we're focused on doing and helping customers prioritize, or I should say select, and prioritize, and define those applications that are a good fit for cloud runtime environments. Velostrata then helps the execution of that strategy and does it at scale. And I'll obviously let Ben talk a lot about what they do in detail. But our approach is to take it kind of step by step. We call it, we're going to get in a little more detail in a minute, but foundationally to understand what exists in the environment. This is a step that many customers skip. They start their migration project by what they think is the best candidate for migration. And in a lot of cases, they tend to gravitate towards the biggest, most important applications they have. The hairiest beast, as we like to call it. It's always about, well, how I can't do cloud. Why not? Because I can't move this app in. And it's like, okay, well, yes, that app is a little bit messy and a challenge. But you have 15 other applications that would be super easy and simple that you can capture a lot of the value of cloud on. But if you don't see them, if you're not organized in a way that you can bubble them up, then you're going to miss that opportunity. So a lot of what we do for customers in the beginning, and what we would recommend they do, whether they use our tool or any other tool, is to get organized first. Understand the totality of the application portfolio. Then you can begin to sort through that portfolio and use different types of analytics. Some are built into our platform. Some people take offline and do from our platform. And again, there's other platforms that do that for you. But being able to sort and prioritize those applications to find those ones that are not just the best cost, but also, for example, the lowest effort, or that give the biggest bang for the buck as far as the strategic goal that the customer has, such as closing a data center or getting out of a particular geography. So once you've sorted those applications in our platform, I'll hand it off to Ben here quickly and let him give an overview of then how Velostrata will take that information and help you execute against that.
Thank you, Jeremy. So once we have all that information on the various applications, we will then start to model each app. And modeling means taking what we have from the RISC Networks platform and adding things like what is the actual order I want to migrate the servers in, what are other necessary information pieces like the landing zone, the subnets, the security groups, etc. Capture all that in what we call the Velostrata Automation Runbook, which we will speak about later on today, and have that as a self-documenting piece that we can audit according to and also use to validate, to do tests before we migrate as needed, to cover specific application issues that might arise for those applications. You want to have the extra step of validation. And then when we are ready, a very simple, instantaneous cutover into the cloud, thanks to our unique agentless streaming technology, having your production applications running in cloud, fully functional within minutes. Storage migration is only after the production users are already working in the cloud, all the applications are up in the cloud, and we essentially take out the storage migration duration from the critical path and allowing you to onboard, to cut over the app as quickly as you want. Back to you, Jim.
Great, thanks, Dan. So that gives you a high-level overview of the best practice from RISC and Velostrata about executing that type of migration, right? What we're going to do now is just briefly drill in a little bit more to each of those sections so that you have some some color around how we approach these problems, and then some of the technological aspects of each of our platforms, right? So we'll start with risk because that tends to be where customers are starting. As I said, they're trying to get organized and understand the portfolio. And, ultimately, that's why our company exists, right, is to help customers answer critical questions. And what we found was that most of the time, they couldn't answer those questions because they didn't have the information organized in the right way. I always refer to it as kind of like doing your taxes or something like that, right? I've got to get the information organized first, and then I can execute on it. But if I don't have all my stuff together, if I don't know where everything is, and most people haven't kept up with that, they have a CMDB, but it's way out of date. They have some tooling here or there. They have network monitoring, but it doesn't really help them understand how things work together and relate to one another. So that's really the first step that they need to do. And you can go to the next slide, JP. Once they've done that, right, then we can help them with being an answer engine. So I understand my portfolio, but I need to now do some analysis on that portfolio to determine what applications I may want to prioritize. So you can see we help with analysis in a couple different areas. What we're focused on today is public cloud. And so this means looking at things like costing. So what's that application going to cost to run in any particular cloud, right? So we cover every major public cloud. What will the level of effort be for that migration? We even allow customers to add their own intelligence. So as an example of a use case, they may want to tag the applications in our platform that contain PHI data or PCI data. And it doesn't mean that they don't want to migrate them, but they may want to prioritize them separately or migrate them to a different availability zone in the cloud. And so they have the ability to add their own intelligence and then use our platform to layer that on the application stacks and prioritize with it. One of the main things that you should understand about all of this, if you go to the next slide there, JP, is that we're doing this work just like Velostrata is in an automated fashion, right? So this is not something where we go to a customer or one of our partners and say, hey, you have to build all this. And then once you've built it all, sure, then it's valuable, right? But that's a lot of work. That's those 18 months or 2 years that people have been working on these types of migrations. So in our case, we're going to use our intellectual property, our patents around organizing the information and analyzing it to really shorten that time frame. Now, as we always tell people, I would love it if I could tell you it's 100% done when you do it, right? That's not the case. Our goal is to get you about 90% of the way there. So to take you from chaos on the left to order on the right, step one, and then help you get from order to action with Velostrata to get your cloud migration project done. So we do that, if you go to the next slide, JP, by building what we call the RISC Networks metadata layer, okay? So everything you see along the bottom there, servers, load balancers, VMs, network equipment, storage arrays, all that stuff, those are all what we might consider to be atomic particles. And what we want to do is we want to bring those together into what we would consider to be a molecular unit, right? We want to take hydrogen and oxygen, turn it into water, because water is what you drink. So we want to bring that together into what we call an application stack. That's a group of resources working together to provide a business application or multiple business applications back to the business. So that's the process that our platform is going to do in an automated, agentless fashion. So just like Velostrata, we're going to be agentless on that piece. So we bring all of that together. It's very simple and easy to deploy. And really our goal is to get you as the customer and or the partner to the point that you're able to do this positioning as quickly as possible. Really do those higher level analytics. So as I mentioned, public cloud transformation is one of the sets, but you might also, in conjunction with that, be doing stuff around security. DR might be a use case for you for cloud, and so this might be the initial step that you're going into. But the key is to get organized, and we'll talk in our case study, for example, as we go through the presentation today that we have around Turner Broadcasting. Once you're organized in that way, a lot of different things become easier, and we'll talk some about those secondary benefits as well. So once you've organized, JP, if you go to the next slide, we're going to, again, provide some analytics to help you rank and prioritize those application stacks. So you're able to add different weights to different characteristics of your applications. So you may care a lot about storage. That might be a big driver for your business, or you may want to prioritize applications with not much storage, right? Same goes for connectivity, highly interconnected apps, lightly interconnected apps, highly used apps, lightly used apps, applications with PHI data, applications without it, those types of things. So you're able to build different profiles for how you want to sort and analyze your application stacks. And then our platform will provide you a very simple, easy to digest and read output of how, based on your criteria, you should be prioritizing your applications. So you go all the way back to the beginning of this presentation. The first slide we showed was analysts saying, you know, the problem with cloud migrations isn't the migration, isn't the cloud. It's not choosing the right candidates or choosing the ones that really, you know, we're untying the biggest knot first instead of trying to go for some of the smaller ones that we can execute on and get some success. That's one of the major best practices we see people who have successful cloud migration practices doing, is going after the low-hanging fruit first, getting those wins, building those muscles of migration with their internal teams and or with their customers or their partner. And then as they build that strength, they can then impose it on the bigger applications and start to tackle them. So the very last step for us, once you've prioritized these applications, in the next slide, is you can, again, export that to Velostrata. So it's very simple. You say, hey, these are the ones I want to do. You're going to export this. Once you have that out, you'll pull it right into the Velostrata platform. And Ben can talk to you a little bit about how that's going to function then when it gets into Velostrata. One of the things I do want to note, again, for everyone, is at the end of this presentation today, we do have a demo. This is a working, fully functional integration here that you can start using today. We have a video demo of it online, and we'll talk at the end of the conversation or the presentation today about how you can get some of that executing in your own environment if you're interested. So Ben, I'll pass it over to you, and you can talk about how Velostrata then turns that order into action.
Thanks, Jeremy. So taking all that discovery and assessment information in hand, it is now really the time for the migration execution and to actually move those workloads into the public cloud. As Jeremy mentioned earlier, the typical cloud migration challenges are only becoming bigger and bigger when it comes to large enterprises. And our typical customers have thousands of workloads, hundreds of complex multi-tier, multi-stack apps, many terabytes of data that they need to move into the public cloud. And how can you do that without having a very intimate knowledge with each app? How can you schedule and plan everything to fit right into a short maintenance window you have? How do we deal with things that go wrong sometimes? And eventually, how do we build a multi-cloud strategy without having to build separate practices for each cloud? These are some of the challenges or some of the bigger challenges that enterprise typically face with. Next slide, please. And here In Velostrata, we are a purpose-built cloud migration tool. We were not born to do disaster recovery to the cloud, to do P2V, or to do backups. We were born to accelerate public cloud adoption, and this is what we do. Our patented agentless streaming migration allows you to rapidly migrate hundreds or thousands of workloads into the public cloud, dramatically accelerating and shortening the migration duration. And when we look on uptime is always key to all customers. But it's not enough to promise maximum uptime with minimal cutover or maintenance windows. A key component here is the predictability. How can you assure taking out of the equation things like the storage replication time, things like bandwidth, change rates that you need to handle, synchronization challenges, etc. Only Velostrata is able to assure quick and smooth cutover of any workload to the cloud within less than 10 minutes. No need for replication, no synchronization challenges. Any workload, regardless of size, in the cloud within 10 minutes. Risk mitigation is key, and we de-risk the migration journey in every step of the way, starting from the ability to do fast, instant testing, which we will speak about, continuing with the actual migration, the actual cutover, which is predictable and short, as mentioned, and even with a safety net, which will allow you to roll back on premises as needed with a single right click within minutes and with no data loss. And this is something that no other solution in the market can offer but Velostrata. When we talk about complexity, reducing complexity and labor effort is precious to everyone, especially to our business partners. How can you do more with less? Here as well, especially when you consider our tight integration with the RISC Networks platform, we are now able to really build a migration plan that will stick and will succeed. No more endless troubleshooting or endless planning. What you see here is an ability to take up to 300 VMs and migrate them in parallel, basically with one click. And that's the real power of a purpose-built platform. Agents and being agentless is so crucial. Agents make everything so complex, from deployment to security changes that you need to do to accommodate agent replication, extra unpredictable, unplanned load on production workloads that are running on premises, to non-consistent cutovers that you need to deal with. All those are avoided when you use agentless tools like Velostrata. Next slide, please. I want to speak a bit about the migration process, the operations, and the architecture of the Velostrata solution. The first phase is the modeling, as mentioned, taking essentially the output that you have seen from the RISC Networks platform, which will contain grouping, contain sizing, and enriching that with things like the subnet, the order, capture all that into the runbook, which you saw, essentially a single CSV file. That runbook can be used for tests before you migrate, which will allow non-disruptively take any app from on-prem essentially perform a VMware snapshot, which takes 5 seconds or less, and start within minutes a full thin clone in the cloud. With that thin clone, you can do full testing, any verification you may want, no need to replicate the storage, no need to wait hours or days. Run as many iterations as you want until you are satisfied, thanks to our unique agentless streaming technology. Next slide, please. And when it comes to the actual cutover and the actual migration operation, before we do that, I want to tell you a bit about the Velostrata architecture. Velostrata is deployed as a single virtual appliance on premises. It's a software-only solution, interfacing with the on-premises VMware components, such as like vCenter, like the ES6 servers on the on-premises side. On the cloud side, we automatically deploy what we call the Velostrata Cloud Extension, a set of 2 virtual appliances in a highly available active-active configuration. These appliances facilitate a multi-tier caching subsystem, which consists of in-memory, fast storage, and object store. Those 2 sides communicate with each other over an optimized encrypted communication channel, and we have built in WAN optimization to accelerate the migration even further. And this is essentially what enables us to perform this agentless streaming migration. And the actual migration is all about a single click in the UI or one command where you take the runbook, which you have seen, and execute. According to the specifications you have put in the runbook, we will take that workload, and within a minute, it will be up and running in the public cloud. Storage will be transmitted in background while users are already running and are already using the cloud, the application instance in the cloud. If for any reason you need to use our safety net and you need to roll back the application to on-premises, you can definitely do that. As mentioned, very, very simple, very quick, and with no data loss. Once the storage migration has been completed, once you are comfortable with the cloud configuration, you no longer need the safety net that we offered. You no longer need the Velostrata multi-tier caching subsystem in the cloud. A simple detach operation, which essentially cuts the cord between on-premises and the cloud and leaves you with the VMs running in the cloud using native storage in the public cloud. Next slide. But in our words, it's all about numbers. All the benefits and the capabilities I talked about are translating to our bottom line and to your bottom line. 10 minutes, predictable, quick cutover, regardless of size, can be a 50 gig VM, 500 gig, or even a 5 terabyte workload, and it will be up and running in the cloud within 10 minutes. No replication is needed. Tremendous labor saving. Customers typically estimate 3 to 5 hours per server. Thanks to us being agentless, thanks to the many automation capabilities we have built into that purpose-built solution. When we talk about a POC, or what is the first step of that that deployment or that project, you can complete an end-to-end POC of Velostrata plus RISC within 2 days. That's a very, very quick onboarding, and we have been doing that on a daily and a weekly basis, getting you inside, doing the first step into the cloud within days. And when we speak about the overall cloud migration project compared to alternatives in the market, and it's not only the speed, which we covered a lot, it's the entire package of the scale that we can support, the safety, the safety, and the speed, of course, to demonstrate results much, much faster and finish projects much faster. Back to you, Jim.
Great, thank you, Ben. So what we're going to do now is actually go through a couple of case studies. We've talked about a process, and what we'd like to talk with you guys about is how we've applied those processes at different customers, what their experiences were, et cetera, so that you can get a feel for that. Before we do that, I want to talk just a little bit about some general best practices that both Velostrata and RISC contributed to, because we're both involved with customers doing this. And these are some things that we saw across the board that were really critical to long-term success of a migration project. So the first was this migration pipeline, keeping it full. Again, not getting stuck on that one twisted knot, but being able to understand there's other opportunities there. That yes, one application may require some transformation and may require some additional work, but a lot of applications won't. So how do we find those? How do we get our conveyor belt running while we look at those special applications? And so in order to do that, you've really got to take a broad picture of the environment, and you've really got to do some of the things that Ben talked about as far as being able to test, right, and determine some viability sometimes based on some of that live testing. The second piece is this network topology. I came from the network world, and Ben did too when he was at VMware. So we both are comfortable with that. A lot of migration projects are initiating right now of application owners, which is great, but they may not be as familiar or as comfortable with these kind of architectural components around networks and security groups and ACLs and all this kind of stuff, VPNs, and how do we do all of that? So we've got to have that information. Everything that we're running in the cloud has to still get access, right? We still have to get to it, but we also want it to be secure. So really getting a good handle on that, doing some settings, doing some pre-work on that. You'll see even things like reducing the DNS TTLs so that you can get those records to update more quickly and things like that. So there's some best practices you can do here, as you'll note, that help your migration. There's nothing worse than cutting it over than being like, well, it's cut, but we're just waiting for DNS to propagate, okay? And then lastly, this kind of resource planning and light transformation and trackings, right? So being able to do a couple of things. One, optimize as we go in. A lot of customers that we work with are either, well, they're actually the worst of both worlds, let's call it this. They are under-provisioned and oversubscribed in their virtual environment. So they don't have enough resources dedicated to machines, and then they're oversubscribing the physical resources in the virtual world. So being able to find some of those opportunities to get an improvement, really doing that resource planning so that I get the right sizing, I don't spend more money than I need to in the cloud. And then understanding that, yes, there may be some light transformation. There may be some retooling that you do as you do the work with Velostrata, right? Some additional work that happens on those workloads as they go in to update tooling and licenses and those types of things. All of that stuff getting automated, just being aware that it's going to need to happen. And that's the nice thing about working with platforms that do this, is because you'll get prompted for some of that. Oh yeah, I forgot I might need to do that, right? So it's a great way to handle that. All right, so let's talk about some very specific examples. We'll do the first one here with RISC. This is our engagement we did with Turner Broadcasting based in Atlanta. TBS, Cartoon Network, a bunch of different properties that Turner Broadcasting owns. So they brought us in along with AWS, and they had a strategic plan, right, to leverage cloud. But when it really came down to the brass tacks of it, they were having trouble getting off the ground. They didn't know where to start. And the problem was not that they didn't have any options, right? It was that they had too many options. So what they wanted to do was be able to organize it all, understand for each individual property what opportunities there were for cloud, communicate that to application owners, and then begin to execute. So they engaged with RISC to do that. This was about 16,000 servers. There's a link down there on the bottom right. We did a webinar with Turner and AWS, which you can watch online. You don't have to take our word. You can listen to Don talk about his experience. One of the interesting things that Turner found as they were doing this project was that about 10% of their environment, it didn't need to go to the cloud. They just didn't need it at all. Because the metrics and the analysis that we were doing around making sure something was a good fit for cloud kind of bubbled these up and said, hey, these are zombies essentially that are running out there in your environment. So they were able to shut down 1,500 servers, like 10% of their environment, using the analysis. So again, just an indication of additional value you get by getting organized in the right way and then starting to process that information. So again, I'd encourage you to watch that webinar or the presentation that they did with AWS if you're interested in hearing a lot more detail on the Turner case study. So Ben, I'll hand it to you for yours.
Thanks, Jeremy. And the first customer I want to speak about is actually a very large energy and gas company, a very famous brand. And the partner that they contracted to perform the cloud migration chose Velostrata and brought us into this account with the purpose of migrating over 2,000 servers, essentially evacuating the data centers which were up for renewal both in EMEA and in the US. And the result there was amazing, and they actually won an award of Cloud Journey of the Year for 2017, being able to accelerate the migration pace from 30 VMs per week, which was what the partner originally planned, to 30 VMs per day, 5 times faster, or 80% less labor, no matter how you want to look into that. But thanks to the agentless approach, thanks to the streaming technology, thanks to their extensive use of our customization and automation hooks, which actually allows you to automate a lot of those repetitive tasks that you do in each server you migrate, they were able to save all those hours and all that labor and accelerate the project, which was in the bottom line dramatically reduction of the total cost of ownership. And they didn't have to maintain 2 data centers at once. They didn't have to pay double infrastructure, etc. That's a very, very nice success story for us. Next slide. And the second example, this time from the healthcare vertical. And this customer was actually on stage at the last AWS reInvent conference. And the customer presented the cloud journey, how they built their migration factory, and of course, the crucial part that Velostrata had in this cloud journey and in that migration factory. And the customer was able to dramatically reduce labor, save tons of budget associated with the migration efforts. Again, agentless was a key for them. automation as part of the migration, and actually using the runbook automation to implement or to execute the very sophisticated tagging strategy was one of the key success points for them, and they were very, very happy to being able, in the end of the day, build a very cost-effective, repeatable process of how they migrate thousands of servers, including production servers, of course, from on-prem into the public cloud. And in some days, you can see this customer moving as much as 100 to 150 virtual machines in one day. That's another great success story. Back to you, Jamie.
Great, thanks, Ben. So we put this up here. There's a lot of information on this slide. I won't read through all of it, but these were some of the things that we felt were tenets of an enterprise-grade migration. I'm going to actually call your attention to a couple here that we really haven't talked about because they're not specific to an individual instantiation of our products, not a feature, right? But simple, scalable, and safe are huge things in the enterprise, right? Taking a complex project and making it simple to execute, making it scalable, right? Velostrata and RISC, while both of our solutions will work for customers who have 20 servers or something that they want to do, all right, and that would be great, it's not really where we shine. Both of us work very well in enterprise environments because we have scalable systems that use a lot of automation. And those are key. So if you're looking at other solutions or you're looking at how you're going to address the problem, a lot of it has to do with how large is the scale that you need to do it at. For Turner Broadcasting as an example, and I'm sure Ben can talk about some of theirs too, but for Turner Broadcasting, we had 2 billion rows of data to feed our dependencies and groupings. That's a lot of information. You're not going to wrangle that in an Excel spreadsheet, right? So as it gets to scale, those are really big things. If you want to do an enterprise-grade migration project, you're going to want some tooling that can do that scale. And the last one is safe, right? And I don't mean just safe. Yes, there's features like Velostrata has they're kind of rollback if you need to, right? But it's also about the security of the individual organizations. What have they done? What kinds of customers have they worked with? Have they been through healthcare and energy and large-scale media companies as far as understanding how to operate safely within that environment? Agentless is a huge component of that. So both Velostrata and RISC are agentless. So again, those are things that you should look for as you think about approaching cloud, whether you use our platforms or others, right? You should think about those things in the enterprise really make a difference, and they're not going to show up on a checkbox feature list. All right, so the last thing I want to talk about is just that we do have a joint solution available. JP, if you go to the next slide there. Here's obviously contact information for either of us. So if you are currently a Velostrata partner or customer and you're interested in how RISC can help you, your Velostrata team can help you with that. And then vice versa, if you're a RISC Networks customer or partner and you're interested in Velostrata and how you can start taking action right out of the data with Velostrata, we can help you. Obviously, you can contact each of the individual companies too, but our teams are prepared to help you with that if you want information, setting up demos, those types of things so that you can get a deeper dive understanding of that. Again, I think the benefit of doing that is being able to work with companies from the software side who are doing this today, who can help you and talk to you about what we see other customers do with each of our joint platforms that really work, maybe what we saw them do that wasn't ideal. And so you can kind of get some of that tribal knowledge without having to be part of all of the tribes. So it's a great way to do that at scale. So I will turn it over to you, JP, now. I know we wanted to leave time for Q&A, and then we have the demo at the end. So Ben and I, I'm sure, we're happy to answer whatever questions are coming in.
Right on. Well, they are rolling in. So one of them is about specifically you were just covering about how to purchase. And there's a couple questions on how is the license cost decided? Is it based on servers, storages, other parameters? You guys care to speak on that?
Yeah, and I can do mine, and then Big can talk about theirs. We don't have to get into all the specifics. Happy to have an offline talk with anyone, but the RISC Networks platform is based on basically how much data you want to collect. All right, so that data is a matrix of how many servers and over what period of time. So if you're looking for 30 days and 100 servers, then that will be a particular cost. If you're looking for 10,000 servers for a whole year, that'll be a particular cost. But that's the model that we have. Our integration to Velostrata is obviously free of charge, right? So we're exchanging that information back and forth so that you guys can have a better outcome. But there's not an additional feature charge on that. But I'll let Ben talk to their model as far as how that gets priced.
The Velostrata solution is priced per workload that you're migrating to the cloud. So if you want to move 500 servers, then that's a 500 server license, which you would purchase from us, regardless of how much data you wish these servers have.
Great, thank you. We have another question about phase 3, so I'm going to pull that up. It shows hypervisor and VMDK only. Does that mean that it only supports virtual machines migration to cloud, and that two specifically which are VMware based?
That's a great question. So our solution is primarily built for VMware environments, but we can definitely support migrations of other platforms like physical servers or even other hypervisors.
Great, thank you. We have another question. It says, can the tool provide a strategy for multi-cloud migration?
So I will answer from the Velostrata perspective.
Yeah, they'll both allow you to do analysis of multiple public clouds. Now, we are talking here about primarily large hyperscale public clouds, right? Not every cloud that exists in the universe, but yes.
Great. Another question we have is, are the solutions relevant once you're in the cloud?
So I'll answer that from the RISC side first, and I'll give it to Ben, because I think the answer, again, for both platforms is yes. Right. So from the RISC side, once your assets essentially are in the cloud, if you've migrated, we will continue to discover them and continue to keep the same type of performance and connectivity analytics going on them. So again, a lot of our use cases around security and around change notification, identification will be the same whether you're in the cloud or on premise. One of the really nice things is once you've migrated the application into the cloud, you can see kind of what it was before and after. So if there were to be a problem, let's say in a month in a particular application, and you needed to compare it to before, well, what's different, right? How is the performance? Maybe there's a new dependency that's been built. Maybe it's going over to S3 for storage instead of over to the NFS now. Whatever it might have been, if you did a transformation or something on it, you're able to see those differences so that you can pinpoint what might be the root cause of that challenge. So yes, they are still, as well as continuing to optimize your cost. I should mention that. So we'll continue to look for opportunities within your public cloud for you to optimize your costing. And I'll let Ben talk about how they add value there too.
Yes, and also from the Velostrata perspective, we're definitely here to help our customers, not just in the first step of moving from on-prem into the public cloud, but also on the next day where they potentially want to have a cloud mobility within the cloud, between clouds. Our platform can definitely help optimize that. And also in the future, we will be offering even more advanced capabilities regarding modernization, etc.
Sounds good. The next question is for Velostrata. They say, can Velostrata do disaster recovery to the cloud?
The Velostrata solution is purpose-built to do cloud migration. That's what we do. We don't do disaster recovery or anything like that. We believe that a cloud migration should not be treated as a DR event. DR event is unpredictable by nature, and cloud migration is predictable, and customers are looking for a totally different experience and result.
Thank you. Here I got a technical one. What is an R score?
Well, does everybody have 3 hours for me to give this answer? No, I'm just kidding. An R score is classification of a workload into essentially a level of effort bucket for migration. So this was originally a Gartner. I hope I probably won't get in trouble for calling it a Gartner thing, but it was a Gartner construct around how much of a customer's portfolio could be, for example, rehostable. So the reason it's called an R score is because most of the things started with R. So it could be rehostable, could be replatformed, could be re-architected, could be retained, meaning keep it on-prem, could be retired, meaning you just get rid of it altogether, and so forth. So rehostable is really your simplest migrations, potentially, because that workload is capable of running in the target cloud environment without any significant change. So, for example, it doesn't need an operating system change or upgrade in order to run in the target cloud. If it's running Windows 2003, as an example, and you want to put it into AWS, that's not rehostable. We're going to have to make a transformation on that. It's not that you couldn't do it, but it's not going to be really fully supported. You don't want to run your production like that. So those are the types of scores that our platform will automate, and then also allow people to adjust and add additional analysis on top. So perhaps you're going to go to VMware on AWS or something like that, right? And so then your analysis might be slightly different about what you could rehost or replatform. So you have the flexibility to adjust it.
All right, we'll take our last question and then go over to our demo. And this one is, how do I decide which public cloud? What parameters can you help me with? And I think maybe they're kind of getting to, you've mentioned AWS a lot. Is there, so how do you decide?
Well, and I'm sure Ben can talk to this too. I think that there are many vectors that will influence your choice of public cloud venue. Okay, some of those are technical, such as operating systems that are supported, types of platforms as a service if you're going to do any of that. It might be instance choices, availability zones, geographic locations, those types of things. So some of these are kind of what I would consider to be technical. Some are not. Some are business related items. Some are relationships. Some are based on the types of applications that you're running. If you're a Microsoft shop, you might be more inclined to run that at Azure rather than AWS. So I think what certainly we look to do from the RISC Network side is provide the information that you need to make the technical decisions. Some of those we will show you right up front. Certainly things like cost, you're going to be able to compare A to B to C. But then past that, even to the extent that you want to understand how some of the technology pieces in your environment, such as what .NET versus Java and this kind of stuff that you might make decisions on, you'll be able to get that from our platform. Now, then when you get that's probably only 50% of your decision. It might not even be that much depending on the industry you're in. If you're a large retailer, you're probably not moving all your stuff to AWS, right? That's just not the way it goes, and that has nothing to do with technology. So I think that, I think it's an oversimplification to say, yeah, we'll tell you which clouds are running. I think we could certainly provide a lot of information to help make that decision, but there's a lot of factors there. And Ben certainly can talk to it too from there. So.
Yeah, I definitely agree that there are many factors to consider, as you mentioned, Jeremy, both technical and non-technical. But I think what we see from customers is that in the bottom line, all enterprises today adopt a multi-cloud strategy. So they will have two cloud providers. In most cases, the larger ones, more than two maybe. And the practice and the customer, the partner definitely wants one tool to be able to help with those multiple or that multi-cloud strategy. So that's on the first part. But then on how to decide, I can say you can just try and see. And many customers use the Velostrata platform to actually test the various cloud providers. And with the capabilities we talked about, the ability to move in minutes into, let's say, AWS, and then move back, no data loss, move to Azure, and move back, etc., allows you the flexibility of making decisions in minutes and changing your decisions, etc. So no easy answer here for sure, but we have the tools to help.
Great, thank you. Yeah, we had one last question about migration between clouds, and we're here at the end. We're going to go into the demo, but clearly both of our companies are platform agnostic. We'll go into any public cloud and between public clouds as well. So just a reminder, the housekeeping, we're going to go into the demo now. If you're on phone, the audio will drop. It's only available on the computer, but this last demo piece will be available in the video recording. You will get that today, as well as the slide share that has these slides for you to review. Thank you again to both presenters, Jeremy and Ben. You guys did great. And thank you all to the attendees that are here from all around the world. And so without any more, we'll go straight into the demo.
Hi everyone, Tom Nickel here, Director of Product Marketing at Velostrata. With me is one of my colleagues from RISC Networks, Zane Whitner, Director of Business Development. Today we're going to do a quick demo of the new integration between RISC Networks and Velostrata, which delivers a really nice end-to-end best-of-breed cloud migration experience. By relying on RISC Networks' market-leading discovery and assessment technology and Velostrata's market-leading cloud migration technology, it really is a pretty great match. So let's kick it off with Zane from RISC Networks.
Hi there. I'm here on the Cloudscape platform and just wanted to show you how we're going to take an app that's been identified and discovered through the Cloudscape platform and going to migrate that using Velostrata. So here I am in the Velostrata environment. I've grouped my applications, I have names, and we've identified our Sugar CRM application for migration. Now this is kind of a smaller environment for my demo here, and I can see that I have just one critical dependency, this red line here, going over to Active Directory. So in reviewing the dependency of this app, I feel pretty confident that I'm not going to be really breaking anything critical. So what I want to do now, let's just jump into the Sugar CRM app. Take a look at that, see what I got here. It looks like about 14 cents an hour to run this in AWS. Got a web server, database server here, the instance name being scheduler. And I feel pretty good about this, so let's go ahead and migrate it. So I'm going to move over to my Velostrata runbook export report, and I'm going to say, which stack do you want to migrate? Select Sugar CRM and hit refresh table here. And now I have my export there, my 3 servers. I'm going to hit export to CSV to bring that file down. And now I'm going to import it into the Velostrata tool for execution.
Okay, now that we've exported our runbook CSV file from the RISC portal, we're ready to begin the migration. To do that, we'll be using the Velostrata Runbook Automation Toolkit. Though Velostrata supports migrating VMs by simply clicking within vCenter and using our wizards, the Runbook Automation Toolkit is an alternate way to migrate VMs, and it's most useful when enterprises need to automate the migration of tens, hundreds, or even thousands of VMs at a time in a specific order and with unique variables that need to be defined. You can see here we've got integrations to both the AWS and Azure clouds, and on the left you can see the applications we'll be migrating from on-prem Sugar CRM. Let's do some quick editing of the Runbook CSV file we exported from the RISC portal. We're going to set some of the appropriate dependencies. Instead of migrating these 3 VMs in parallel, we'll migrate the Red Hat VM first, and then we can migrate the database and app VMs after that. Lots of other variables you can edit, including the instance type, cloud extension, cloud edge node, cloud subnet, and many, many more. We're just not going to edit any of those for today's quick demo. So once we're done, we'll go ahead and click Save and open up a PowerShell window to start this migration. We can use the get help command to pull down the exact syntax, and then we'll use the start migration command with the runbook CSV file that we downloaded from the RISC portal. Just to note here, this migration is starting at 152. Here at 156, we can see the Red Hat VM has already been migrated, so that only took 4 minutes. This lightning speed is thanks to our patented streaming migration technology, which allows enterprises to migrate any workload to the cloud in minutes, regardless of the size. This is in contrast to most other migration tools, which require lengthy upfront replication periods and cumbersome replication software agents, both of which Velostrata avoids entirely. Now that the first VM has migrated successfully, Velostrata will automatically begin migrating the other 2 VMs, just how we specified in the runbook CSV file. Skipping ahead again to 205, we can see the other 2 VMs are now running in the cloud successfully. Since we started at 152, that means it took just 13 minutes to get these 3 VMs with 1.5 terabytes of total attached data running in the cloud. So I think we'd all agree that's incredibly fast, and the process was incredibly smooth. Going back to vCenter, you can check on their status here as well. We can see these VMs are all running in the cloud, which we already knew, but you can see it here as well. And we can also see that their data continues to transfer in the background. So the applications are running smoothly in the cloud. Line of business, customers, end users, employees can all leverage this application while we continue to transfer any remaining data in the background. So to quickly summarize, what we've shown here was that after just a few minutes in the RISC portal, you were able to properly discover and assess the relationships that our Sugar CRM app had, and then generate the runbook CSV file, which Velostrata then used to migrate Sugar CRM in the right sequence and with all the right variables that we wanted defined. After just 13 minutes, the Sugar CRM application, which consisted of 3 VMs, had the boot data it needed to run in the cloud, and while the application was running, the remaining data for those VMs was transferring seamlessly in the background, and that didn't take much longer to complete either. This is one of the ways that Velostrata minimizes downtime during migrations and makes maintenance window scheduling both predictable and easy. We hope you've enjoyed this quick demo of the RISC Networks and Velostrata integration, and look forward to showing you more in subsequent videos.
Thank you all so much for attending. If you would like to discuss these joint solutions, you can reach out to either RISC Networks or Velostrata at this information. I'll be sending by email the recording and the links today. So watch your email. It'll be coming from RISC Networks. Thank you so much.